hotel here in China to meet a group of dedicated conservationists fighting to save the Yangtze Porpoise from extinction.
And I'm Russell Beard in Leeds, UK, to meet a chef bringing a whole new meaning to the term junk food.
And I'm Nick Clark in Sweden, where they're clamping down on shipping emissions at the busiest port in Scandinavia. You know, it's an incredible thing, but 90% of world trade is transported by ships at sea. But that means surging levels of shipping emissions, bad for the environment and worse for your health. In fact, toxic pollution from ships kills tens of thousands of people every year. I'm Nick Clark in Sweden to see how the port city of Gothenburg is cleaning and greening its act and making the air sweeter for city residents. There's been a port here for centuries. Ocean trade is what makes Gothenburg tick. It handles 11,000 ships every year. In fact, 2 containers a minute pass through this port 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So Edward, good to meet you. How's it going?
Good to meet you. Most welcome.
The port of Gothenburg is very impressive.
As a small country, we're dependent on good connections to the rest of the world. We would export a lot of wood material, steel, cars in this instance, because we have Volvo here in Gothenburg, and import, of course, clothing, food, the normal stuff coming from East Asia and further away.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when you think of shipping, you think of it being clean, a clean form of transport, but that's not precisely the case, is it?
Shipping has always been stuck more or less with the worst type of oil, heavy fuel oil. Heavy fuel oil has a large share of sulfur content. This has, just in the recent 10 years, been lifted up as a problem.
Around the world, even when ships are docked, they keep their engines running. Their emissions a big factor in heart and lung disease in port communities. Here at Gothenburg, they've pioneered a new system. Some ships can plug into green energy generated onshore, so they don't need to burn fuel.
They will actually take the cord now, grabbing it and pulling it into the vessel in order to hook it up to the electricity grid of the city.
So they're taking power from the city,
from the city grid, feeding the ship.
Simple as that. And just plug it in like a plug at home.
Plug in the cord, that's it.
And it's not only electricity that comes from onshore. Gothenburg has a public hot water supply that's connected too for onboard heating. I meet engineer Ingemar Sorensen.
The ship is not so good isolated, so in the winter time it's taking a lot of energy to the public area.
So that means with the onshore power supply, you've got electricity coming from onshore, obviously, but it's not cranked up from the ship. And now you've got hot water and heating coming from the city as well.
So I don't need to burn the oil-fired boiler.
At all?
No.
Yeah.
That's
incredible.
Oh, yes.
Down into the bowels of the ship. This is where everything is controlled from in the ship. This is how it's powered and the whole works.
Engine and auxiliary engine.
What's this here?
It's a boiler.
So this is the one that's in operation when you're at sea. When you come to shore, you shut that down and use the power supply that we've been seeing and the hot water. It's really noisy. Really noisy. Fully connected up, it's time to turn off the ship's engines. There you go. There you go. That's the sound.
Now it's quieting down.
That's the sound of renewable energy. More and more ports are now following Gothenburg's green lead. Just recently, maritime law also changed, making it illegal to sail in certain waters, including Scandinavia's, with high sulfur fuel. And this, amongst other things, makes the port a much nicer place to work. It's a safety officer on a bicycle. Christina, hello.
Hello.
Thanks for coming. So, Christina, you've worked here quite a few years?
Yes, 16 or 17 years.
So you must have seen a fair few changes over that time.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, in what way particularly? Especially about fuel, how's that changing?
Well, the fuel, it's been much, what shall we say, finer, and the smell is better. When I started here, we could smell, when the bunker barge were here loading, it was a smell, but now, nearly nothing.
So that's because the sulfur content has been taken out, is that that's the thing?
That's a part of it, yes.
Right.
So I always liked my job, but now it's even better because it's not so much smell.
And to make sure ships obey the regulations, Gothenburg has pioneered a special sniffer box at the entrance to the harbour.
Oh,
Good to see
hi
you.
there, good to see you.
This is stunning.
Hi.
I can see why you chose to have your office here.
Yes, yes, it's obvious, I think. The objective is actually to measure ships that are passing by in the ship lane out here. The ships passes and the smoke from the chimney blows into the inlets that we have on the roof there.
That's a critical part of the operation right there.
Right.
Can we see that?
Sure, you're welcome.
Okay.
So the air comes through this heated tubing here, and it goes into this yellow box here.
And that is the sniffer box.
Yeah, and right now the ships are only allowed to have 0.1% sulfur in the fuel. And it's like a revolution. It's an order of magnitude lower than actually just 2 months ago. If we look here right now...
Oh, it's coming past.
The ship is coming past. Now we will just hit by the ship trim. You can see now he measured it was a certain amount of sulfur in the fuel. And he identified also that it's a ship standing in Atlantica. It's coming from that ship. It's following the criteria, and we would let this ship go. It will not be put on our blacklist. The measurements will direct the Port State Control authorities to which ship they should board, and they should make some thorough investigations, take fuel samples and so on.
In most ports around the world, the dirty air does not stop when the ship docks. Freight is then typically distributed by road, with yet more emissions. The difference is here that more than 50% of freight coming in and out of Gothenburg is transported by train. It's incredible how long it is. How many containers are there?
About 50 containers on the train.
And how long is it in total, the train?
Total is 600 meters.
600 meters?
600 meters, yes.
So you wouldn't want to be the guy sitting in the car as it's coming through the level crossing?
No, you can see him sitting there.
Right, yeah. It's going to be a long way. So these are all exports coming out of Sweden to be shipped overseas?
Yes, that's correct. With steel products and wood products, mostly.
It's environmentally friendly, most importantly. Yes. But secondly, it's more efficient anyway.
Yes.
So why don't ports around the world adopt this process?
I think they will, because in one train you need to have 40 trucks instead like this to just this train.
At the port, container after container is lifted and shifted as imports and exports come and go. Gothenburg has been a trading hub for centuries, and it's been fascinating to see how it's changing and adapting to the times. And not only adapting, but actually laying down the environmental gauntlet to other ports around the world to clean up our sea air.
Every year, around a third of the food that we grow worldwide never makes it to the dinner table. That's about 1.3 billion tons of perfectly edible produce that's being discarded. And it's not just the food that's going to waste, it's the energy and the land and the resources that it took to grow it in the first place. Can I get 4 of these, please? Cheers, man. Cheers. I'm Russell Beard, and I've come to the UK to meet a local chef who's kickstarting a global movement to fight back against food waste. In 2013, in a deprived neighbourhood of Leeds called Armley, 29-year-old chef Adam Smith started a cafe with a difference. Adam, nice to meet you. Hi, hi.
Welcome to Armley.
Thanks very much. So this is the Real Junk Food Project headquarters, is it?
Yeah, this is where the concept was founded, in this cafe right here. This is the first of its kind that operates wholly with surplus, excess and waste food. And that's what I think has made us unique, because we will take anything. And you'll see it today, some of the food that we'll take. Josh, we're going to the wholesalers, so the big fruit and veg wholesalers.
Adam grew up in Leeds before working as a chef in high-end restaurants and hotels around the world. After seeing the scale of waste, he decided to come home and focus on what he sees as a fundamental flaw in the food system.
Why do we have over 1 billion tons of food going to waste on this planet, and yet over 1 billion people don't have access to food? How is that allowed to happen in the same place at the same time? In Leeds in 2012, there was 22,000 people officially diagnosed as malnourished. In Leeds, we're not even talking about Africa anymore, we're talking about Leeds.
Adam's out intercepting food nearly every day, and one of his biggest suppliers is a local fruit and veg wholesaler.
Every week or so we get visited by the market inspectorate. If they find something they deem to be not fit for human consumption, it might just have a mouldy item in a box, then they put a notice on that product and we're unable to sell it.
So the mouldy product or the box?
The whole box. You can't sell the whole box. It has to go in the bin. There's no alternative but to put it into landfill.
Right.
Every time.
How long do we reckon we've been doing that for? This is just one wholesalers. How many wholesalers in the country? How many times have we been throwing food to landfill because of these reasons?
They must throw away thousands of tonnes a year, and it's all edible.
There's no official data, but it's estimated that in the UK, up to 25% of fruit and veg is wasted before it reaches the consumers.
Okay, that's a great example, isn't it?
There's absolutely nothing wrong with us, but we are illegally we cannot sell.
And there's literally one.
You know, we're being called radical. This is not bloody radical, this is common sense. We could feed the world twice over, we just waste food alone, let alone how much food is being produced and grown around the world. It's just about distribution and access. That's the fundamental problems with what's going on in the food system right now.
Talking about distribution and access,
I know, let's get it all done,
start
yeah.
distributing this, eh? So you're expecting a lot of people for lunch today?
Yeah, good 40, 50 people coming.
Yeah? I hope they like oranges. And it's not just perishable produce, they'll take almost anything. Adam and his team have intercepted 15,000 leftover cupcakes, over half a ton of chocolate bars, and 70 kilograms of unwanted smoked cheese.
We're probably going to do anything between 50 and 100 tonnes this year.
Right.
In one cafe.
Right.
In one cafe. 10, 12 kilos, I reckon. There's whole chickens, there's chicken breast, chicken legs.
Still, it's not at all what I expected, or I'm sure what a lot of people think of. You know, I thought we'd be rooting about in skips at the back of the supermarket.
Exactly. This is what we need to expose.
Back at the cafe, it's time to prepare lunch. And while most of the ingredients are simply surplus or past their prime, some are also past their legal use-by date.
But this is an example of a product having a use-by date on it, which isn't a raw product, which isn't shellfish, it's not raw meat, it's saturated in vinegars and sugars and citric acid to preserve it. By law, you are not allowed to serve food past its use-by date or sell food past its use-by date.
Okay, but you can get around that by...
No, I'm not getting around it at all. I'm breaking the law. I'm just going straight direct through it and going, you know what, this is wrong. I can prove to you that this food is safe.
If Adam had let bureaucracy hold him back, he'd probably still be planning his opening night.
Suits you, sir.
Instead, he just started cooking. 14 months later, the cafe's passed all its health and safety checks and has served up nearly 10,000 meals on a pay-as-you-feel basis in one of the UK's most deprived neighbourhoods. So do you eat here regularly?
The food's great, and I love the ethos of the projects as well. You know, places like this are invaluable. You know, they're invaluable for so many people that can't afford to eat or living on that bread line, and it's invaluable.
It's just a way of contributing and rebuilding a very, very broken community at the moment.
Last year in the UK, nearly 1 million people relied on food banks just to get by. Nearly 3 times as many as the year before. So it's no surprise that Adam's idea is spreading. So we've come down to East London to meet a couple who've been inspired by what Adam's doing. And they've opened up their own real junk food cafe and called it Save the Date. It's Ruth and James we're looking for.
Nice to meet you.
How you doing? Hi. And you hold your elbow.
How you doing?
Hi, James. How you doing? Bit of Christmas pudding in there, that'll keep. 2011, all right? It's like we actually have our kind of inbuilt best before sensors already, don't we?
It's like common sense. It smells funky. I'm not going to eat it.
Anyone can start a junk food cafe. One of the only rules is you have to catalogue every gram of food that you intercept. This information is then fed into a growing nationwide data set.
The data is there because that's what's going to make people realise that there's a problem. Like we can talk about food waste, we're all aware of food waste, we know about it, but it's when you see the hard facts and figures and this sheer volume of wastage, then you're going to take note and something's going to change.
As the network grows, Adam hopes the data they collect will become a tool to provoke government and business to change their ways. and the UK Cabinet Office have already shown an interest in the figures. While there was only around a dozen cafes in the network to draw on last year, that number has now more than doubled to 25 and counting.
Doncaster I opened up a couple of weeks ago, Birmingham, Leamington Spa. We got 6 in Leeds, there's 4 in Bradford. So that's 10 just up in Yorkshire already. Bethesda, Wales, Edinburgh, yeah, Glasgow, Dumfries. I've had offers from Manila and Bali and Ghana, Zurich, Cape Town, Warsaw, parts of Germany and France. I've had offers from all over the world. You could do this anywhere in the world, anywhere in the world. I have no doubts about it whatsoever. Here's some food, here's some people, feed them, let them pay what they want, it's as simple as that. I've got a bit, sorry. Yeah, of course. Service?
Food is nearly ready, everybody's starting to turn up. And what's amazing is thinking that actually this would be happening whether Adam was here or not. And it's really, it comes down to that one thing. It's like that one guy had this vision and he had the courage to stand up and do something. And he's inspired this entire network of people that have all got on board. And who knows where it could end.
I reckon if they had the opportunity to stop us, it should have been day one when I opened that cafe. Because the snowball effect now is that it's not just me gonna stop, it's a whole movement.
China's the world's fastest growing economy, with growth rates averaging 10% over the past 30 years. It's also a global hub for manufacturing and heavy industry, which has been detrimental to the country's water supplies. I'm Dito, and beside me is the Yangtze, the longest river in Asia. Its basin accounts for over a third of China's freshwater resources and 40% of its GDP. The rapid development of the Yangtze has put huge pressure on the river's entire ecosystem, including a very special creature that swims its waters. I've come to the city of Wuhan in Hubei province to meet a man who has spent over 30 years in conservation. Professor Wang, nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I've heard so much about this amazing
Sure,
institution.
yes. Sure,
Professor Wang Ding heads up the Aquatic Animals Research Group at the Institute of Hydrobiology. He says there are only around 1,000 Yangtze finless porpoises believed to be left in the wild, making this animal rarer than China's national treasure, the giant panda. The finless porpoise, a species of freshwater dolphin, is only found in the Yangtze and lakes of central China.
Cute. He's watching you.
Look at that smile.
Yes. Always smile. Yeah.
But the professor wasn't smiling back in 2006 when the baiji, or Yangtze dolphin, a close cousin of these porpoises, was declared officially extinct. You watched the last of the species, so to speak. So how did you feel about that? What did it mean to you?
You know, we have to learn a lesson from the extinction of baiji, because if they are gone in the Yangtze River, they are gone anywhere. You cannot find them anywhere else in the world. And I remember one researcher from the States, he was saying baiji is no more made in China.
Both the baiji dolphin and the finless porpoise are indicated species for the Yangtze River, which means their health is directly linked to the health of the river. It's underwater ballet.
Yes, you're right, yeah. The main purpose of establishing this facility is for doing some research on this species in captivity. We are not only trying to save this species, we are trying to help to improve the condition of the Yangtze River. Hey!
They seem so inquisitive and playful. Are they naturally this way?
Yes. So everybody loves them, yeah. Some of the animals have been here for like almost 20 years. It's just like a member of the family, you know.
This group is doing well, but in the wild, their numbers continue to decline, and they too could be extinct within a decade. So this was a rare opportunity to get up close and personal. I'm now leaving the traffic jams of Wuhan, or at least I'm trying to head southwest to Dongting Lake to see what's threatening the porpoise's habitats and what's being done about it. Dongting Lake, which runs off the Yangtze River, is the second largest freshwater lake in China. Water diverted for farming over the centuries has caused it to shrink to half its original size. The The remaining porpoise habitat is now disrupted by sand dredging for concrete, which destroys a lake bed, and overfishing impacts on their food supply. I'm meeting with government workers at the Porpoise Protection Station in Yueyang City. They police the lake for illegal fishing. Today, they're out to enforce a summer-long fishing ban that runs for 3 months each year. Researchers believe that a decline in fish stocks is one of the biggest threats to porpoise populations.
是通江大海的一个城市，交通水陆交通非常方便。靠过来，你们是哪里的？啊？湖北嘉峪是吧？洞庭湖3月10号禁渔，你们知道吧？就是明天禁渔啊！明天这个船就不能进入洞庭湖，不捞了，你知道吧？啊。
为什么要禁渔？
禁渔是主要是保护资源呐，减少这个捕捞啊，让这个渔利啊，在这个江啊、湖啊更好的这个产卵啊，鱼就多一些嘛。
Researchers say the fishing ban has started having an effect. In 2014, fish stocks and the number of porpoises sighted had stabilized instead of falling. So I'm on my way to the Tianhezhou Oxbow Lake. Like all oxbow lakes, Tianhezhou started as a bend in the river. The lake formed when the river was diverted, and the loop became a freestanding body of water that's no longer connected to the river. I met with the head of the WWF Yangtze program, Lei Gang, to find out what's unique about this reserve. So I just came over from Dongting Lake, where there are some protection efforts out there. So how does this Oxbow Lake Reserve differ from the protection efforts in the wild?
Yeah, it's completely different because the Oxbow Lake, the conditions are similar, but the disturbance from human activities like sand dredging, illegal fishing, and also shipping, they're all forbidden here. So it's a much safer place for porpoise.
Oh, it's feeding time.
This we call rescue fence. So all those injured animals from the river or from the lake, we come here to treat some treatment. And when they are ready to release, and then release into the wild.
I see. Yeah. And when did the first porpoises come here?
The first porpoise come here is in the year of 1992. We have 5 of this porpoise put into this area. Now we have 40 to 45. And every year we have 3 to 5 new babies coming.
Lei Gang invites me for a tour of the lake.
This is the best place to see the dolphin in the wild in the world.
Really, the best place in the world?
Yeah, other places will never be guaranteed. Here, it's guaranteed 100%. Here, yeah, just now, yeah. Okay, over there, yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, this is the best place to see the dolphin. It's a big round anywhere over there.
This network of finless porpoise reserves will protect viable populations and maintain the species' overall genetic diversity. I'm saying goodbye to these amazing creatures with conflicted feelings. The threat to their habitat is enormous, but I've met with fantastic people who are bringing real change to their environment. I really do hope more people come to realize not just the plight of the porpoise, but the urgent need to restore the balance between humans and nature all along the Yangtze River.
For us, there's no waste, because that's why it's important for us to show you that everything counts.
We'll be in Myanmar, where a social enterprise is using clever design to help farmers on the front lines of climate change.